Madam Mayor, we are live and recording. You can begin whenever you wish.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome everyone to our regular council meeting on August 5th, 2025. Apologize for the delay, a little bit of technical challenges. Before we begin, do want to remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. And we do have some participants joining us via Zoom, perfectly on time, as well as from the council chambers. So council, as is always the case, if you are looking to speak on a matter, please raise your hand and I'll call on you at the appropriate time. We'll begin with calling the roll, starting with Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Present.
We have Councillor Watt. We have Councillor Johnston. Hello, sir. And of course, Mike Watson. And then a number of staff are joining us on the bench who will be introduced at the appropriate time in the meetings when they have reports to present. So with quorum of council in attendance, I will call the meeting to order, beginning with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. And with that, we will just pause for a moment of silent reflection. Okay, council, we have quite a full agenda which was distributed well in advance of today's meeting. Just looking if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing nothing, we do have a number of edits to this afternoon's agenda. For starters, we are going to move item 13.1, which is the bylaw 2025-26 to appoint Sheila Landsman up on the agenda prior to or following her being sworn in, prior to being sworn in. We also have a delegate who was registered, Carl Drummond, who has advised that they are not attending. So we'll be removing item 8.3 from the agenda, council. And Mr. Davis, did you want to speak to an item?
To the mayor, to the mayor of Western Council, I respectfully request that we remove item 10 joint chairman report from the planning department from the agenda this evening. Staff receives additional information, which may change or may not change their recommendation. We recommend we have to communicate with the county, so there's enough time for us to do that.
Thank you very much for that. So with those changes, council will be looking for adoption of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Watt, all in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to section 6, adoption of minutes and business arising from the minutes. We have one item, which is our regular council meeting minutes from June 17th. Just looking for a motion to approve and receive those, or receive and approve. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Watt. Any discussion on those? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. There are a number of items that are sitting on our consent agenda, item number 7.1 through to 7.7. Is there any item that a member of council would like to pull or hold for discussion later on in the agenda? Seeing nothing, then we're just going to be looking for one motion to receive the consent agenda. Mayor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Johnston. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, on to delegation, section 8, and the swearing in of the new Dummer Ward councillor. And I'll hand this over to our clerk, Martina Sherwood. Oh, there we go. Already out of order. Okay, so item 13.1. Was that the bylaw? Yep, 13.1 bylaw 2025-26. To provide for the appointment of a person in the office of the member of council representing the Dummer Ward in the Township of Douro-Dummer. Councillor Watt, Councillor Johnston will second that. Any discussion on that? All in favor? And that carries. Now we can go on that swearing in. That will be overseen by our clerk. On to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, I would ask that Sheila Lansley, appointed to council, please rise and join me at the podium. Read aloud your declaration of office and oath of allegiance to the King. To you, Sheila Lansley, having been appointed to the office of councillor for Dummer Ward, in the municipality of Douro-Dummer, solemnly promise and declare the following: that you will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise the office to which you have been appointed to the best of your knowledge and ability. That you have not received nor will you receive any payment, reward, or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, or in any other improper manner. That you will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in the municipal conflict. That you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the United States and if you make this solemn promise and declaration confidence, you will be in the time to think, work, and this performance, I solemnly declare. In compliance with the code of conduct, all members of council shall sign the code of conduct following statement. The statement reads as follows: as a member of the Township of Douro-Dummer Council, I am committed to discharging my duties conscientiously and to the best of my ability. I have read the Township of Douro-Dummer Code of Conduct, and I support and will follow the code in my undertaking related to my position as a member of council. Specifically, I will act with honesty and integrity and conduct myself in a manner that generates community and employee trust and confidence, and enhances the image of the council and the corporation. I will treat all members of council and employees and others in my undertakings on behalf of the township with respect. I will be informed in my understanding of the responsibilities. And further, I will ensure that I will not use my position to intimidate or threaten others. I will be responsible for the disclosure of any situation where my personal interest may have information. I will follow the provisions of the municipal act and the relevant township bylaws and policies with respect to accepting any remuneration, fee, reward, or any other favor for any act done or not done by virtue of my responsibilities as a member of council. I will also adhere to the principles of this code. Further, I will not solicit nor accept any gift or direct benefit directly or indirectly, the acceptance of which would compromise my ability to make an impartial decision. I will honor the need for confidentiality and ensure that confidential information to which I am privy to as a result of my position as a member of council shall remain confidential and not made public during or following my term of office. I will ensure that my communications are consistent, open, honest, and transparent, and in the best interest of the corporation and the community. At this time, I would ask that you now sign your declaration of oath and code of conduct following statement. The signing and the passing of council's bylaw, you are now appointed to the Township of Douro-Dummer Council in the position of Dummer Ward Councillor. Congratulations.
We'll take the bottom.
That's the group.
What we want. They don't want to tell me, right?
I'll say.
I'll slide in behind it, so.
Okay, well, we can move that.
And then, congratulations, Sheila. Is that okay?
Doesn't look, raised in a wrong spot.
Yeah, we.
Half your face is covered with the camera. You need to shift.
I'm terrible. Sorry, let's get like that horse foot on for a bit. Yeah, perfect. Oh, no. Good luck, girl.
It's not going. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Wonderful. Welcome to the bench, Councillor Landsman. Okay, so at this point, as we're all getting settled here, we do have a public meeting to go into for zoning bylaw amendment, application file R01-25. We need a motion to open the public meeting. Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Johnston seconds that. All in favor? And that motion carries. And we will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Before council this evening is a report heading #2025-12 regarding proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number R-01-25. The property subject to the zoning bylaw amendment application is located in Lot 32 concessional in basically known as 2357 Lakeside Drive. The property is an existing waterfront on record country area until affairs and is currently developed for recreational and special use. The proposed amendment seeks to rezone a portion of the subject property from limited service residential to special district 262. To facilitate its redevelopment and development of the existing one-story dwelling and to replace the new and wider two-story dwelling and the deck. As proposed, the special district zone will permit reduced water yard setbacks for the proposed dwelling and attached decks, as well as additional area and depth where decks subject to the required water yard. The amendment further recognize the existing deficient water area. Notice of the public meeting was given on July 15th, 2020. By regular mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Planning Act. Notices were also posted on the subject property, both on the east side and north side, and other minor sections, as well as the website. The application is consistent with the conventional planning statement. Resource-based recreational uses are permitted on rural lands, and redevelopment is subject to existing rural service levels and infrastructure. An environmental impact study was required to address a potentially significant wetland, which is to the property. EIS included that subject to adherence to the recommended mitigation measures. The proposed development will not have a negative impact on the wetland feature or its ecological function. The Township Region Conservation Authority did also note the presence of the Stony Lake floodplain on a portion of the property. But confirmed that the proposed development is located outside of this hazard and is therefore consistent with Chapter 5 of the PPS. The PPS further requires the appropriate conservation of archaeological resources. The property owner consulted with the Heritage Association to remember that the property is in an area of archaeological potential. However, given the minimal disturbance, an archaeological assessment was not requested. The application conforming the length of the designation the official plan memory requires a 30 water setback for the development in this construction water provided that no for the existing water setbacks are to be obtained. The application for zoning bylaw has been submitted to support an expansion of the replacement of the old as of right conditions of the zoning bylaw. The application likewise maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. The proposed development is similar in nature and scale to that of the surrounding properties and will maintain an appropriate balance between built and natural forest. Environmental and visual impacts are anticipated to be minimal, based on the rationale provided by the planner and the justification report and subsequent. No comments have been received from members of the public or senior staff. Enbridge Gas in favor of county engineering and construction have no objections to the application. Comments provided by Autonomy Regional Conservation Authority note that the application is consistent with Chapter 5 of gas related to natural hazards, and that the proposed development is not anticipated to create any cumulative resources with existing assets. Permits will be required to hydrogen site. Comments provided by the Herb Lake First Nation note that the proposed construction methods are anticipated to minimize additional disturbance. Herb Lake First Nation further requests to be notified if any related or natural resources encountered at the site, or if any circumstances arise which may impact the environment or their treaty or abolition rights. The application meets the intent of the applicable provincial and municipal policies. It is recommended that the application be approved, subject to council's consideration of all the comments received. Then the council proceed to enact the amending bylaw at the appropriate time during today's meeting. That concludes my report on the application. I believe the owner's planner, Kevin Dugan, is in attendance online to speak to the application. And I see one of the owner's staff is here in the gallery this evening as well. If there's any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ms. Fitzgerald. Mr. Duguay, hello, sir. Welcome. Can you hear us okay? I don't know if you can hear us.
Yes, I was able to hear you quite clearly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have any comments to make on the application that's before us?
Briefly, if I may. Firstly, I'd like to publicly thank Emily for her assistance throughout processing the file. I would, for council's benefit, she's been particularly helpful and responsive throughout. So thank you, Emily. I have reviewed the public notice. I have reviewed the staff report. I concur with its recommendations. It's important to note an EIS report as prepared by Sumac Environmental Consultants was peer reviewed and no concerns were identified pursuant to that peer review. There were prescribed in the EIS certain mitigation measures which will be carried out as part of the redevelopment of the property. We also acknowledge that a demolition permit will be needed to remove the existing dwelling. And I would advise that my client, the Strattons, will work closely with the municipality throughout the building permit process, which will include a new septic and, as previously noted, any required mitigation measures. With that in mind, it is my professional planning opinion that the zoning bylaw has merit, and I'm happy to say that I reviewed it and certainly am supportive of staff's recommendation. And thank you for the opportunity to permit my attendance in a virtual format, because I have to leave shortly to go to my city council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duguay. Do we have any members of the public who are wanting to speak to the application? Any members in the gallery? And Madam Clerk, can you confirm whether or not there's anybody within the Zoom meeting room, if there's anyone who would like to speak to?
Madam Mayor, there is another person in the meeting room, but they have not requested to speak to the application.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, then I will turn it over to council. Any comments and questions on the application that's before you? All right. Well, seeing that, then we'll be looking to close the public meeting. Councillor Lansley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. And So now we're going to be looking for council for a motion that the report dated August 5th regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application file R-01-25 Stratton be received, and that council receive all comments related to the file, and that council proceed to enact the zoning bylaw at the appropriate time in the meeting. Councillor Watt, second by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion? All in favor? And that carries. And for the speed of all those who are joining us interested in the application, I would suggest with council's approval that we can move up the bylaw. That's item 13.2 for approval at this point. Just looking for somebody to motion that, Councillor Johnston, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes that planning item 8.2. So we're moving on to item 9 now. As noted earlier, 8.3, the delegation has been canceled. There is, at this point, there were no individuals who had registered for the public comment period. And I'd just like to note that that is typically extended on the holiday. I think normally the deadline to register would be on a Monday, but given the fact that it was a holiday, it was extended through to today as well. So that takes us on to item number 10, which is staff reports, starting with item 10.1, the report and capital project status. I'm just looking for council with any questions that they may have on the report. And as everybody finds and pulls it up, if I'm not seeing any questions, I'd be looking then for a motion to receive that. Deputy Mayor, you ready to make that motion? Councillor Watt will second it. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to item 10.2, severance file B-34-25 for Leahy. And that's over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Before this evening is report planning 2025-13, which is the supplementary report regarding the township's recommendations on the consent application file B-34-25. As was directed by council at the last regular council meeting on June 17th, 2025. The application concerns the property located in part of Lot 6, concession 2 in the Douro ward, and this rules 482 Douro first line. The application seeks to create a new law for residential use by severing the portion of the property in active agricultural use from the portion of the property developed for residential use with the most attached dwelling. In accordance with the township's delegation of powers bylaw, the planner provided comments on the application to the county with the submission of a completed municipal appraisal form dated June 9th, 2025. The same was provided to the council for information purposes during the regular council meeting on June 17th, 2025. The municipal appraisal form provides that the application conforms to the township's official plan. The retained parcel conforms to the township's zoning bylaw, but the separate parcel does not. The application was recommended for approval subject to several conditions, all of which were outlined on the municipal appraisal form. The agent who submitted the application disagreed with 2 of the recommended conditions, being the rezoning of the severed parcel and that a 3-meter strip of frontage from the severed parcel needed to the township road widening purposes. The rezoning of the severed parcel was recommended given that the severed parcel is deficient from the minimum lot area requirements of the rural zone. The minimum lot area for an agricultural or farm use is 20 hectares. And following the severance, that separate lot will be reduced to 18.6 hectares area. Relief from zoning bylaw is necessary to address this deficiency. Further justification for the reduction has since been provided by the agent. And staff are prepared to address this deficiency through a variance rather than making zoning applications initially intended. And staff are prepared to update the municipal principle accordingly. The 3-meter strip of frontage from the severed lot is something that is uniformly requested from all severed parcels involved in consent applications. And this has been the case for decades, as I've come to understand. This condition was recommended in anticipation of future road widenings and other improvements within the right of way. Acquiring acquiring the land through a consent application process proactively protects the legal status of the township, and this will remain as a condition on the recommended condition on that consent application. In closing, the township's role in the consent application process, it just has a commenting agency with respect to an application's conformity with the township's official plan and zoning bylaw, and conditions are recommended to ensure conformity. The application must proceed to a division committee if the owner or the agent would like to seek amendment to the conditions recommended. So we're not going to answer any questions the council has.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions of Ms. Fitzgerald on the report? Councilor Johnson?
Through the chair, no really question except the fact that, are we just receiving this? That's all that, because we can't approve that, it's not our job, but, so we're just receiving it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the recommendation is to receive this.
And I just remind council to use your microphones because the audio won't come through on Zoom properly if you don't. Any other questions of staff? Seeing nothing further, we're just looking for a motion. Councilor Johnston? Thank you. And Councilor Lansman is seconding that. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to 10.3 has been removed. So on to 10.4, the active investigation policy with the proposed amendments. And that's over to Mr. Holman, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For your report 2025 and the associated attachment. These documents are only proposed changes to the current policy. So the active investigation policy is P8. The current policy has been in effect since June 16, 2020. And after reviewing the policy and receiving some feedback on the current policy, staff are recommending changes as shown in the attachment, which is a draft of it, which shows the track changes. And so our proposed changes include some minor formatting, but also clear language on when the policy acted. So you'll see that we've added just that it's at the investigator's discretion, and also not only if the party is under review, but also if they're engaged in legal dispute detention. One of the other additions that we have is that is how council and staff may interact with the active investigator, and this is a completely new clause for us. And so that's clause number 4. We also have the provisions in the event that the investigator is no longer employed, so that's point 8. And we discuss that who the carriage of the file will be passed over to, and then that it can be then passed on to the person. And then the last one that we have is point 7. It's the appendix B, and it's the termination of the policy. And that's probably one of the biggest things we receive feedback on is when and how do people know that this is no longer in force for us or and so appendix B is just the template in which we'll notify staff and council. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Any questions on the report that's before you as staff? Okay, what would you, actually, before we go to motion, I'll ask a couple of questions. So I know that this is something that I was asking to come forward and, for a number of reasons, including that addition of item number 7 to be able to notify the termination of when that's over. I'm curious, however, about item number 4 as it relates to the communication between staff and council unless prior authorization has been granted by the active investigator. What would that look like in practice, Ms. Roman?
The intent on that is, I guess it's twofold. It's trying to sum up the spread of misinformation. So as people are discussing it that don't have firsthand knowledge, and it starts to kind of get legs of its own or a different context of the story, it's trying to just temper what is actually happening. And then also with the staff and council's relation to the active investigator themselves is to try and, again, protect the integrity of the investigation, that there's not interference is really what it comes down to. So, not one party isn't, not suggesting this would happen, but pushing the agenda or feeding information one way. It's just that the idea is the active investigators to act kind of in a silo or a bubble as they do their investigation. So if they go and ask questions, that's fine. But other than that, they're not to be approached by other staff and other council members to kind of push what they've been hearing or it can muddy. So if we end up in legal proceedings, we can end up muddying what we know through the investigation versus what, and it just tries to keep that cleaner is what the intent is.
Okay, thank you. And then just following up on that then, as council, we're often approached by proponents who might be potentially under an active investigation. Historically, I know we're approached, or I've been approached, I should speak first party, that, people are wondering what's going on and looking to perhaps even find a resolution and a course forward. So as an elected official, what is my role in that when they're coming looking for perhaps some mediation between their parties and staff? And that's kind of often our role, even without active investigations as elected officials, to not necessarily mediate, but bring parties together and have a conversation. So what, in practice, how does that conversation go now? If somebody's saying, listen, like, I want to be able to sit down and have a conversation, with lawyers, without lawyers, and let's be honest, and I won't name specific files, but we've had those meetings together with proponents and whomever. What's our role now as elected officials when it comes to that cause?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's so many nuances and situation based on this. I think that if I look at it twofold, one is if we look at just in the eyes of the active investigation, so we understand that there's legal proceeding, either imminent or is already taking place. And the idea again is they're always welcome, I would say always welcome, to sit down with, we'll take it as a building involved. This is typically what we see in this policy, so I'll try not to include the other departments. But they would sit down with the manager of that department, chief building official, myself, and they would say, they're always welcome to have a conversation with us. Having council mediate it can be challenging. Especially so if we look at the building department alone, we're to act without interference. And so if really the idea would be is that they should be talking to us directly, not through someone. We, as like the building department and even bylaw council, I mean, no disrespect, please, I hope this comes across right, but your citizens with the role of guiding your township, but we don't have the authority to give you information about files. You're the public in our eyes, and if that makes sense. So if you're not an authorized agent, we don't have the authority to discuss a file with you. And so the idea would be is we should be talking to the agent or the applicant or the property owner, whoever it has, and we should be trying to find that mediation within the rules that govern us. And I guess I need to see the situation on where council could help that. If it's customer service based, and it's been that we haven't, lived up to our end of customer service, my suggestion would be that there's a complaint process that they can file against us as well that elevates it past the direct manager. So if they feel they're getting nowhere with myself, then there is a complaint that they can issue a formal complaint on that, and it can start that way too. I think that I apologize, but it's so nuanced on when we can and can't kind of get involved. The idea would be is that when it comes to bylaw, council, approves the bylaws that we enforce, and then we enforce them as such. And if the bylaw needs to change, that's a conversation that we can have. But individually, we have to enforce the same against everyone. And so, or not enforce against. And so the idea of having someone in the middle of that, I'm not sure how I would see that help get us to the end goal.
Understood. And I understand if there are, you use two different circumstances, just in your comment there, Mr. Helen, that, if there are actual legal proceedings, I fully would support council, the thought that council should not be engaging any of those conversations. That makes good sense to me. But in an attempt to potentially avoid litigation, and if a property owner, whatever, the applicant, agent, whomever is saying, listen, there's maybe just some personality conflicts here. And again, it's not against any one member of staff, but maybe they feel more comfortable having a member of council sitting in the room, not as their official agent, but as just an ally, a supporter, an advocate. Are we not able to do that in that case?
If we're outside a legal proceeding and it's just like a general in nature, I would say that absolutely, if the applicant or owner or agent has asked you to come into a meeting, we don't have an issue. I would suggest that it could put council in a tough position if they're looking to you to give a resolution that staff are unable to give at that time. And if it's just about getting, both sides of the story, then I guess council can themselves they see fit on that. But I don't know. I'm not sure I'm aware the benefit of council being in that meeting, except for the owner of maybe feeling more comfortable. But I don't see it helping get us that we act based on our policy or our guideline. We act on the building code, act the code. We act on our bylaws and reasonable enforcement. We have things that we have to do the same to all. And so having a one-off with one person, I do struggle sometimes to see how the benefit of that and where that can lead us. I feel like if they propose a reasonable solution, whether council's in the room or not, we would be taking that reasonable solution if we can. And if we can't, again, whether council's in the room or not, we can't. And but again, we don't have issues if it's not within a legal proceeding. Again, if there's a policy not being enacted at the time, if the member of the public feels happier to have council around, and so we don't have an issue.
Okay, understood. Thank you. I see Councillor Lansman. I'll just finish with obviously same report, but just a final question on that. How then do you see the active investigation policy being activated? Is it going to be used with incredible extreme caution when moving forward with that, or when there absolutely is legal proceedings happening? Or is it going to be a little bit more widely adopted? Because I think that council still, personally, I think that yes, council could be called in to be a support person or advocate. Not talking about somebody with an agent. I'm talking about with just an individual property owner who's trying to navigate an already difficult process to understand it for most people, and they just feel comfortable having an ally sitting beside them. So, how widespread do you anticipate putting this active investigation policy in force? And I see our CAO has a comment to that.
Through the Mayor Listening Council, and thank you for the question. What I will say is, having reviewed this report and having had a discussion with Mr. Hellman, what I would note is Don's been in this role for a couple of years now, and he's never activated the investigation piece. So I think, from my perspective, and the way that I sort of understand it is the CBO enacts or the active investigator enacts this policy predominantly when we're find ourselves in legal proceedings. We have to protect the organization and not just sort of so to answer your question, the use would be spared.
Thank you. And I had Councillor Lansman with questions, and then Deputy Mayor Nelson and Councillor Johnson. Thank you.
Yes, I did. Through you or to you, Madam Mayor, would you not agree that many, not percentage-wise, but many people who are looking to build would come to you, the councillor, as a friend, as somebody they can talk to and ask the rules and what they should be doing? Because I think that is going to involve council right away.
It's true, and that's why I'm trying to understand what our role is in an active investigation.
Yeah.
But that would be prior to their being, let's assume there's no trouble if they're thinking about building something, let's assume that they haven't had that. But the other point on that I'm concerned about is, and Mr. Hellman, you touched on this, was, as a governing body, council sets the bylaws, it'll set the policy. And if there is a flaw in the policy that a resident feels exists, and they happen to be under the active investigation, and that could be the bone of contention, then how do we ever know that there is an issue that perhaps we should be looking at from a policy standpoint? Because I'm going to make an assumption, again, not to slight staff in any way, but if that's the bone of contention, a resident thinks that there's a problem with the policy and staff are upholding the policy, and I know that I've heard staff say before, well, you can always bring something to council, but again, how do they do that when it's all under this active investigation blanket, if you will? So I struggle with the box that you're putting council in, as well as agents, homeowners, whoever might be under policy with that item number 4. It's kind of more of a rhetorical question. I had Deputy Mayor Nelson and then Councillor Jones.
Thank you, through the chair. Don, I guess I kind of feel the same way as Mayor here. I understand when it's legally we can't get involved, but we also, as head of council, or as council, has a responsibility to the people that have elected us to make sure that and don't take this the wrong way, but we have a responsibility that staff is also treating our customers, our residents, with the utmost respect and following policies. And as the mayor said, if there's a flaw in policy, and not intended to you, but any staff member, whoever that might be, if there's all of a sudden, it's all of a sudden considered active investigation, I think that this council needs to know that we're either in an active investigation, and I'm sure that staff is going to tell us that, but I also believe there's a lot of, I just look at past issues, and I just worry about it being classified as an active investigation, and maybe all the answers isn't even collected yet. And then we have, as the mayor said, we have a resident that comes to us. They're not wanting to be in a lawsuit, but they want the problem solved. And I think we might be painting ourselves into a box that might be very hard to help them. That's my concern. And I think it's very valid. And especially with right type of under the right circumstances. That's what I'm.
Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, concern. I agree. To maybe echo CA's comment, I have yet to enact the policy. We only see the policy, the active investigation policy being used when we anticipate like imminent legal action to be taken. So whether that's the township taking legal action against someone, or whether they are taking action against the township. It wouldn't, it is not designed, nor, and for me, would it be used to shield ourselves from, like you say, if there's a concern or a complaint, and then it becomes just an active investigation. It's not the intent of the policy. It's not how we use it. When the policy is not enacted, then I think that's where that's the next kind of, that's where I agree. Like there's this idea that they'll come to council and they'll come to you and they'll say, what do I need to do? Can you help me? And I can appreciate that. And I think there's many things that might come to more education from our department to council about, what that can look like. So we did redo the website that talks a lot about, how they apply for permits and what we expect from that. Obviously the more education that you all have, and I'm not suggesting you don't already, is it's more information you can give to the public. But realistically, we also want them to reach out to us. So when they come to you and they say, how do we do this? Sometimes playing broken telephone can be challenging. And so I would suggest that like the hope is that they come to us, they ask the questions, we give them the answers, and they do those things. We are working on formalizing our approach with residents. And then again, I think that if it is a complaint-based issue, and that's what we've talked about, if they have an issue of us not treating them fairly or us not treating them with respect or something, that Deputy Mayor, that's the complaint process that we have that goes outside of our department and actually goes, to the CAO, which then looks at how did we manage the file, and were we inappropriate with them, or did we not, service them customer service wise appropriately? And again, if it comes that there's consistent issues, I think I look at this, and not to oversimplify, but we look at it with the zoning bylaw. We're under a review I'm sorry to go on tangent here on 328, but we've seen enough where people are always asking for the same relief. We're saying, oh, by the way, this looks like this policy, though passed, for the township, it doesn't really fit what all the residents' needs are. So we bring a report back and say, this is what we would like to do. So in this one, would be legal compliance. And this is the idea: is if there's something that continues to become an issue, then we can review it and say, well, is it an issue? And again, 1, 2, 3 complaints on 180 permits. I guess that's council's decision whether that's a complaint or like a real issue to change. I think there's mechanisms in place for when people don't, so if they don't agree with our technical decision making, then there's an avenue for them to dispute that. If they don't agree with our customer service, then there's an avenue for them to have that looked into too. And I think that if we formalize those 2 avenues, rather than finding ourselves, trying to mediate either with or against each other, the idea is this is the fact, the policy says this, and if there's continued to be issue with the policy, then change it. Not the active investigation, but whatever policy we're on.
Thank you for that. Mr. Davis.
To the mayor, rest of the council, I'd also like to point out that not introducing this policy in council tonight. This is a policy that's been in effect since we say so we're just amending or updating that policy because I think we find ourselves in a bit of a loop on certain active investigations that we're trying to close the loop on, and I think we recognize that those are loopholes. I would also further point out that on item 15.1, we have a notice of motion coming forward and talk about the service delivery review as it relates to the building planning division of this organization. And so that will be also part of that. I think speaks to exactly what Mr. Roman was saying, that if we get some work done on how we deliver the services, we may actually come.
Thank you for that, Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, through the chair. I guess my question is that how do we know if there's an investigation will go on? I get people calling me, I bumped into them, and they have concerns, okay? And I mean, I try to help them in any way I can. But they always have to go back to the building department and kind of tell them in a nice way. They got to meet with your people and try to resolve things. I mean, I like to try to help them any way I can. So how do we know that maybe there's an investigation going on that I wouldn't even know it? Because I mean, and we need to go in and talk with people.
Mr. Roman?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Johnson, thank you for the question. In the report, Appendix A, as part of the policy, is a draft, is a template that we'll send out to council and staff to notify them when this policy is being enacted. So in that scenario, like as it pertains to this policy, that's when you will know whether there is an investigation under that, which is limiting your ability to speak to the person or to the active investigator. Outside of this policy, I still support the position of them coming and talking to us, but you're right, you wouldn't necessarily know if there's one, but there would be no, in that scenario, this policy is not enacted, there'd be no reason to know whether there is. We would notify you through the template and Appendix A if we're enacting the policy.
Okay, good discussion around this. Council, what would you like to do with it? Everybody else?
I personally, sorry about that. Through you, Madam Mayor. I wonder if we shouldn't hold off on this policy until as our CEO has already said, there's a notice of motion here coming forward, and maybe include that in this review, and even take a look at this policy as well through all of that review. And then make decisions after that time. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor, what I'm hearing is perhaps a motion to defer, motion,
To receive it, but not for the.
No, defer the actual policy.
until such time that we haven't debated this other item to know for sure that that's coming forward, right?
Correct.
So just a motion to defer at this point?
Yes.
Let's do that. A motion to defer. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Watt, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, on to item 10.5, also Mr. Hellman regarding RSM building consultants. Over to you, sir.
So before you council, you'll report 2025-13, and so this report talks about on May 6, 2025, brought forward report 2025-45 and presented it to council. The report identified that at certain times, CPO being required additional as the file 2025-18 was subsequently passed and appointed certain members of our as building inspectors for the township. In the report 2025-05, there's a lot of focus on some stuff that we were doing with plans review to issue a permit in a timely manner. Nonetheless, the bylaw did appoint these members as inspectors for the township, and so today we're just asking that council clarify that RSM building consultants can be used to issue building permits, complete inspection of issuers under the Ontario. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions of staff on this report? Councillor Johnston? Chair, please.
Question number comment. I'm not against what you're doing here. But with what's going on right now with the construction permits and everything, I hope that we never have to use this. I mean, hope there's a strictly emergency basis, and we have an awful lot of inspectors now. Maybe not with them all with the qualifications at the top, but I hope that I don't have problems going on with this, but I hope we never have to use it. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your comments. Any questions, staff? Seeing nothing, just looking for a motion, Councillor Watt.
Just to make a motion to follow recommendation.
Thank you. Does anyone want to second that? Deputy Mayor Nelson, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. On to 10.6 community grant requests, and that goes over to Mr. Kramer.
Mayor, through the council, in front of you is report 2025 or treasurer 2025-16 regarding the community grant request for our office. There was one request that came in. We were looking for council to receive this report, and the request that came in was under the $750 threshold that allows staff to approve the request for statement. Staff did approve the request for $200 to the Commons Association for the 2025 Congress, which is going to be held on September 27th, 2025.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kramer. Any questions of staff on the report? Councillor Johnson. Thank you. Councillor Lansing will second that. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. On to item 10.7, financial report. And back over to you, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In front of you is report treasurer 2025-20, financial update after that June 30th. I'll be open to any questions. I do want to highlight, as always with these types of reports, there's always going to be limitations at this time of year and reporting so close to the date. We will not have received all invoices for expenses and reported all of the revenues at this time. We're continually reviewing the data throughout the year, so it's going to change. We're potentially doing entries and dealing with COVID. Lastly, expenses and revenues are not incurred equally throughout the year. So some line items may show only 2% of the budget left. That's just because, for insurance, for example, we paid out earlier this year and we've made that payment in full already. One other comment about the data is that where possible, I have reduced the expenses on the appropriate line items to account for the funding that we are expected to receive related to ice storm expenses, just to not skew the results. As we know that those items are over budget, but also that we will be receiving funding as we complete the application later. And I think that it's reasonable to assume that we're going to receive that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kramer. Questions? Councillor Johnson, your mic's on. Did you have something you want to say? No. Any questions?
Okay, I'm ready. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So you want to second that motion? Deputy Mayor Nelson, any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. On to item 10.8, procurement update. Mr. Kramer, last one for you, I think.
Thank you. And to be Madam Mayor, in front of you is procurement update for August 5. Report treasurer 2025-. This is titled procurement update, but I think if we dive a little deeper, that there is a little bit more in this report than this procurement update. Back in October of 2024, requested council to approve our application to give us authority to approve or apply to the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. The project that was approved was for the Rio floor replacement at the Douro Community Center. We applied for funding up to 1.5. The total project cost is expected to be 2.15 to 2.4 million. In the 2025 capital budget, there was a project for the design and engineering to take place to allow us to complete the project in 2026. The project that was only going to take place if we were successful receiving funding. On May 30th, Township staff did receive confidential notice that we were approved for the funding, pending announcement, and that announcement took place this past Friday at the Douro Community Center, where MPP Dave Smith did make the announcement we were approved for a $1 million fund. I think this is obviously astounding and great news for the community to be able to continue the use, the long-term use of Douro Community Center and the NBO. We did kind of identify though, over the past few weeks, staff have been working with the provincial government staff to finalize our transport agreement. It was identified that for this project funding, for the grant, we need to have the project completed by March 31st, 2027. Therefore, to not interrupt the main users of the ice surface, we're proposing to start the project April 6th. And that will allow us, if all goes to plan, to complete that project before the season starts back up in September, October. So the first step is to get the design and engineering done. That's what's in front of you. We did include the location process. We received 3 bids from 3 very qualified firms. Ultimately, the recommendation is that Barry Bryan Associates be awarded the contract, complete design, engineering, construction management services for the original door replacement at Ontario Community Center in the amount of $97,000 plus taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Crinder. Any questions of staff on the report that's before you? Seeing nothing, just looking for a motion then. Deputy Mayor Nelson,
I'd like to approve the
you'd like to
recommendation.
make the recommendation, and Councillor Lansman, looks like you want to second that. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to item number 11, committee minutes and other reports. We've got committee of the whole meeting minutes from June 18th. Just looking for a resolution to receive those. Councillor Johnston, and approve those. Councillor Johnson. Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. 11.2, Peterborough County LPP Detachment Board minutes from April 28th and June 23rd, 2025. Motion to approve and receive those. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Lansman. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries. And 11.3, the OPP, Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board 2024 Annual Report, just to receive that report. Thank you, Councillor Johnston, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Number of items on correspondence. We'll start with item 12.1. We have a letter from Jim Mullen regarding the building department process review. What would you like to do with that? Deputy Mayor? With your microphone, please. Sure. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd like to receive that, and also with that in mind of the review that hopefully council passes later on in the agenda of them departments, and hopefully will, might bring to light some of his concerns, hopefully, on the customer service.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I would suggest we accept the
Motion to receive.
most you receive.
Thank you. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Watt, I see a nod. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Item 12.2, Douro-Dummer Locals, letter regarding new county official plan. Should do that, council. Good Mayor,
A motion to receive.
thank you. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Johnson, any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. 12.3, Town of Coburg and the Municipality of Trent Lakes, resolutions of opposition to Provincial Ontario's Bill 5. What would council like to do with this?
I would make the motion to receive and support.
Receive and support. Deputy Mayor Nelson, if you could just state your mic, please. Councillor Johnson has a motion to receive and support, just for those who couldn't hear that. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Watt will second that. Any discussion? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. On to item 12.4, Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, regarding advocacy for increased income support thresholds for Canadian veterans. What would you like to do with that, council? Councillor Watt?
Receive and support, please.
Thank you. Does anyone want to second that? Sheila or Councillor Lansman? Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. 12.5, the Honorable Senator Robert Black, protecting Canada's soil for future generations. What to do with that? Councillor Lansman? Motion to receive. Someone want to second that? Deputy Mayor Nelson? Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. 12.6, Township Autonomy South Monaghan, regarding a resolution regarding reducing the criminalization of lawful cash transactions under Bill C2. What would council like to do with that, Councillor Johnston?
I like to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support. Deputy Mayor Nelson, so if you're seconding that, any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. On to Bylaws are done. Sorry, just had to pause there for a second, see where we're at. On to item number 14 then. We have the bottle return proceeds report, and Mr. Davis, you're going to present that?
Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So on June 6th, council passed those the motion that asked staff to come forward with a proposal for how we might distribute the dollars collected through the returnable bottles program at Glen Transfer Station. And doing some research for this, what I will say is this was originally conceived of by staff when we were looking for ways to support the United Way. And so that's why we came up with this. That's how we originally came to this program. I will note that in the notice of motion, the idea or the notion was floated that it would be appropriate to reconsider how we distribute those funds. And the idea was to donate the revenues that came forward as this initiative to recognize council's desire to direct those funds, from traditional United Way donation to a local managed sports organization. Staff, to support this motion, the recommendation of staff is, it's in this report, is that we move these funds annually away from the United Way and into our community grant program, and that the revenues be identified with the budget, and that these funds be exclusively available to interested not-for-profit local sports and recreation organizations who are users of town facilities. So effectively what we would do is that those funds would go into our community grants budget. We would come back at the budget time with a more formal process to which those organizations could apply and mechanism to make those decisions as to how we would be trying to ensure that all organizations that are not-for-profit in this environment use our facility. Happy to take any questions you may.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff on the report? Councilor Johnston?
Just, I agree with what you're saying. Now, they'll have to know ahead of time to come and ask for money. Like, I mean, not really what we have said to
Through the mayor to Councilor Johnson. Yes, if this is the direction of council today, then what we would do is at the budget, we would come back and let you know how much money has been collected. Incidentally, as a question has not been asked, so we would have to share what we've collected over the last series of years, a couple of years. So I will say that in 2023, this program raised $1,657.80. In 2024, we raised $1,499.90. In 2025, to date, we've raised $531. This program. Should council direct us to become part of the community grants, we would come back at budget and we would come up with a process, predominantly an application process for council's decision, and then we would, if so approved, we would market that to the local community sports.
Thank you, Councilor Watt.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Our community grants program, I know this is community grants, but do we have outside of our township, people ask for money and we give it to them? Why I'm saying that is I would rather see like a separate line item just for this for our nonprofit recreation and stuff like that. So it doesn't get mixed up or doesn't get used for something, if it gets, I think at the thing today said we had $550 left. Now it doesn't take long these days to take up $550, and I wouldn't want one of our sports teams getting shorted. They put an application, but we don't have money now. We know we're at the very start of the year. Okay, we've got $1,500 and it's going to be split up. That's the way I'd rather see it, to tell you the truth, not put in with that community grant. But that's just my.
That's going to be a Councilor Watt. So a couple of, you have a lot of questions in that one question, and I'm going to problem. So what I would say is that we do, from time to time, see outside organizations requesting funds from the township. To my knowledge, and I would rely on the treasurer to provide information or provide you clear information, but I would suggest that the grant program itself does not support community organizations outside unless they are doing activities within our community. Number one. Number two, we had an example just recently where we had an application for a community grant for a for-profit enterprise that was operating within the community that we turned down because the goals around the community grant program are to support not-for-profit organizations that are doing activities with their community. The third thing I would say is I'm not suggesting that we put this money into the community grant program and then let it get frittered away to a bunch of different community grants that are not related. I suggest we use the same methodology as the community grant program and that we reserve this money as a separate portion of that community grant so that it goes specifically to the sports organizations. And every year we will report at the budget how much money we collected in this calendar years that we had to put towards that program in the following year.
Any other questions? Councilor Lansman, is your hand up?
Sorry, is there a motion on the floor or not?
Yeah, just questions.
Just a question. I would suggest that I agree with both what you said and Tom said. I would just make a suggestion that perhaps when these returns are taken and cashed in, it might be better taken to a place where everything that is refundable is accepted. Because I know that not everything that is acceptable as return outlets is acceptable locally. Just a thought.
Through council, through the mayor, council, and I appreciate it. I'll should pass that on. To ensure that we're taking advantage of this as much as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilor Johnston?
No question, I just want to make a motion to receive the report.
If I could just ask a question first, then I'll come back to you for your motion. I've got a question. Mr. Davis, I noticed that a couple of times just as you're describing how this would work in theory or in practice versus what I'm seeing is written. And I just looking for some clarification around the line in the recommendation says that the new fund would only be available to local nonprofit youth sports and recreation providers. So is it youth recreation providers or all recreation providers? And I know it's very nuanced, but I know that we've got, other seniors groups, for example, who, or the Woolworths Derby, which isn't necessarily youth driven. So I'm just looking for some clarification on that. And I want to make whichever way council goes, make sure that we're very clear on that.
To the mayor, back to the mayor. I think the initial motion suggested youth, which is why we carried that through the report. That's sort of what we were supportive of. However, I don't think it's matters to staff. The youth component isn't as critical for us. It's more the not-for-profit element of the fact that those activities are happening within the community and the fact that they're happening at township on township properties. We suggest youth because I think that's how the motion came forward. If council would prefer to open it up to everyone, I think we would be receiving direction from you, but currently that is what we are targeting the sports and recreation organizations in.
Thank you for that clarification. And I will just remind council then that that was the intent of the motion, was to support youth sport. That was the motion that was approved by council at that June 6th meeting. So to me, that's, as the person who brought forward that, it's a motion, that's where I'd like to state the intent to be. And that was the direction that once I gave it back to them. But I just wanted to get clarification through and confirmation from staff. Okay, Councillor Johnson, you are ready to make a motion on that?
I'll make the motion for the recommendation.
Thank you very much. And does anyone want to second that? Councillor Lansman, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to, speaking of notices of motion, item 15.1, notice of motion from Deputy Mayor Nelson. I'm not sure, Deputy Mayor, if you want an opportunity to speak to it a little bit, and then we can go into a debate and see where we go, or what would you like to do?
Sure. Would we like to ask the clerk maybe to read out that notice of motion, then I can speak to it? Would you mind, Marquis?
Deputy Mayor?
Through the mayor, on behalf of Deputy Mayor Nelson, the motion reads as follows. Whereas the Township of Douro-Dummer completed a service delivery and organizational review in 2020, which provided recommendations to the ways in which the building and planning services are delivered, and whereas the Council of the Township of Douro-Dummer adopted a new strategic plan in 2024, which laid out core values of service excellence and transparency and strategic pillars of service modernization and innovation, along with business attraction, expansion, and retention. And whereas there's been a change in the operations of the Building and Planning Department due to the retirement of the Township Planner, and whereas the delivery of economic development services has been moved from the former Peterborough and Kawartha Economic Development Corporation to the County of Peterborough, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Douro-Dummer directs staff to engage a third-party consultant to review the processes related to the Building and Planning Department, along with the economic development portfolio, with the goal of improving efficiency and customer service. And be it further resolved that the outcome of this review include, but not be limited to, 1, finding efficiencies that do not compromise public safety, 2, increasing communication and processes between township departments, 3, including metrics by which community satisfaction can be measured, and 4, producing plain language models of understanding for the general public.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Deputy Mayor, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, again for being on out there. I personally would like to see engagement with the community, with the consultant, and hear some of the stuff that I hear, and also in Jim's letter kind of spelled out some of them issues, I believe, very clearly. Some of the problems or issues that some of our builders are having and people building, and that's just one aspect of it. Not to pick on the building department, but there's some other departments as well that Martina has put in here as well, that we'd like to have a little review over and hopefully improve our customer service to our repairs and get hopefully it right under a review and increase our services, not increase our services, but give our customers the best service that we could possibly give. And that's what I'm really after, and brought this notice of motion forward to not to pick on any of our departments, but it's just to improve and have a review and take a look at that, not only with our staff, with our outside customers, and also with our council as well. So that's really what I'm asking for, is to, and I believe it's very important that we do this and improve that customer service, because a lot of people, whether they perceive that it's not customer service, but I think a lot of people are not happy with the customer service. So I'll stop with that.
Thank you very much. So I'm assuming you're moving that motion this evening. We'll be looking for a seconder before we can have any kind of debate with that.
Yes, I'll be moving that motion.
Thank you. Does anyone want to second that motion that's before us today? Councillor Johnson. Any discussion on the motion?
My thought is that we can't resolve that tonight, but it's a very, very, very important issue. Like there's, right now, we know all across the area, in Ontario too, is that the construction is down big time. And the last thing we want to do is turn people off thinking that we're not open for business. I think that we got to let people know that we're open for business in any way we can help them, anyway. Not put roadblocks out, but any way we can help them. I mean, there's so many rules and regulations in place now, and everything costs money and time. And people don't want that, I won't say money, they'll pay their way, but they don't want the time later to get things going. So I do think it's very important that we somehow get together and have comments from the public of the way they see us and suggestions of how we can change them. So I totally agree with you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Before Councillor Watt speaks, Madam Clerk has something to add.
My apologies, Madam Mayor and Deputy Mayor. In my flipping of the page, I did miss one sentence of the motion between the paragraph that speaks about Economic development. There is a sentence that I missed, which is, be it further resolved that the review process include consultation with staff and members of the community. So my apologies on that.
Thank you for that clarification, Madam Clerk. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that forward. And I would, just for my own suggestion here, whatever, but it's something. The way I would like to see it is staff put out the call for service to get this done, and staff have a sit down with them. So we got that. I'd like to see council have a sit down with them to give our ideas of the what, hows, and whys that we're really looking for from this firm, and then open it up to the public. In Mr. Mollahan's letter, I want to make sure that these people that have contacted us are notified that, hey, that these consultants are going to be here at this date, and this is the time for you to come in for a meeting to sit down with them or whatever, whether it's a public meeting, whatever. But that's the kind of way I look at the whole process running, and then let them do their job.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Any other discussion on the motion? I'll speak to it briefly then, just in the essence of time. I do support the motion that's before us today, and I think that, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing this forward. I know in 2022, when I was running for council in this role, knocking on doors, talking to people, we heard concerns. And I know since 2022, since this council was elected, we've tried to get to the root of the problem. And I can plainly say I don't have those skills and expertise. We're hearing from the community. I think that there's been improvements. I don't want to completely make it seem like our building department and ECDEV and planning are problematic, and there's been a lot of legislative changes too since that time that have made it challenging to navigate. But I think that this is a good way forward for us to be able to find efficiencies so that we have a better customer experience down the road. So I'm in favor of the motion that's before us today. Seeing no other questions or comments on the motion, I'll just call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. On to item number 16, a couple of announcements. I'm going to look to Councillor Johnston, because usually you have some announcements. I don't know if you do today.
No, I guess we've got a couple announcements. One is that we're having a benefit at the Lions on August 16th from 10 to 3 in the Lions Park in Warsaw. And the second thing is, time is flying by, but remember the Douro doings on Labor Day weekend in Douro, of the Sunday, Monday thing, it was in Douro Park. Anyways, keep those things in mind.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements from the council? I will just make note, earlier this week, I know council is aware of this, that Mr. Premier has announced that he's accepted a position down the highway a little bit. So he will be leaving us sometime in September. I think the date is to be fully confirmed at this point, but early September. September 3rd is the date now, okay? And we will be going through a proper recruiting process for that. Also, just wanted to mention that the tree orders, the annual tree program, will be opening up on August 18th. That first opening is for people who have not had an opportunity to purchase trees in previous years. And then following that window, the week of August 25th, other folks can come in, of course, residents, and it is on first come, first served basis. And pickup for that is usually after Labor Day weekend, if I recall. They're ordered in August and September. And the pickup is the third week of September, plus or minus a few days. So just to get ready to plant some trees again, folks. Okay, on to item number 17. We do have a closed session before us today. We're going to be looking at a motion to go into closed. I do need to read the reasons as to why. Because of, is it this?
No, I'm sorry.
It's this section I've got to read, yeah. So we're going into closed for the following reasons under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. For B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting municipality or local board. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. So, council, if I could please get a motion to go to close, Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Reisner.
Might we take a 1 minute?
We certainly can take a 2-minute break while we transition the room once we get to close. Thank you. That's been seconded. All in favor? And that motion carries, and we will resume in 3 minutes.
No, no.